Welcome to another edition of Jesus for Mormons. In this episode, this episode's really about you. We have comments that have been coming in. We've had emails that have come in, and we're going to have a little bit of fun with this. So, I am Kai Van Leuven. I spent over 30 years in the Mormon Church, and this is what I did after leaving.
I'm Di Beals. I'm a pastor at Venture Church in Washington State, and I'm your friend, and I am along for the journey.
All right. So we have had questions and comments come in, and I'm really excited about all of these. And if you have any other questions or comments as we go through this, you can email us at jesusformormons@gmail.com. And you can also write on our YouTube channel. You can write a comment and we respond to those as well. A few of these are from that. And so, Di, let's just go ahead and get into this and just have some fun with the discussion today. So for all of you, maybe millennials and older,
your birthday starts with 19.
What's that?
If your birthday year starts with 19.
Yeah, there you go. This may spark something in your memory.
You've got mail.
All right, and that is what we have today. We have some mail.
You're so clever.
First one that this is maybe not mail, but it's a little bit funny. So our email is jesusformormons@gmail.com. And so as I log into jesusformormons@gmail.com, it references me as, hi, Jesus.
Name change, question mark?
Yeah. So should we change the name? I don't know. It seems a little sacrilegious for me to be referred to as Jesus. But it is kind of a fun thing. So I thought that those who listen to this podcast might kind of have some fun. All right. This next comment is from somebody who's maybe critical of me, Kai. Here we go. And so the question that I put at the top of this slide is, am I cringe? This person said, I am an ex-Mormon too. GKDSW. That's who's saying this. However, I can't get past the first 5 minutes of this video. The laughing makes me cringe. And they won't get to the point. Next. Well, there you go. I'm sorry. I am extremely lighthearted. While I was reading this comment, it's actually really funny. I was laughing so hard, which is pretty funny. That I can't even take this criticism, seriously, and I'm laughing so hard. So anyways, my response back to that, I was not trying to be snarky. I said, sorry about that. I am laughing 90% of my life. Probably that other 10%, I might be crying. But maybe it doesn't translate on a podcast. All right, let's get into it. Maybe laugh out loud. I think that, do people say that anymore, Di?
I don't think they say laugh out loud, but the LOL is all over the place.
The LOL is still alive and kicking. I have a really funny story about this. Sometimes to the older generation, the acronyms don't translate very well.
Oh, I know where you're going with this. Yep.
So there's a group text between my two brothers and my dad and myself. And we would just randomly send messages to each other. And my dad, we would say like, all right, man, see you later. And my dad would type back LOL. And we're like, all right, why are you writing LOL? And so finally, he did it so many times that we were like, okay, what's, where is he going with this? And he said, yeah, LOL. Lots of love. Lots of love. Oh, you've heard this, Di.
Oh, for sure. Yes.
Is this like something that was in the
this was in the verbal database long before LOL became laugh out loud. Yes.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah.
Okay, well,
Back
for
when you
all
would
you
write a note to your friends on paper and pass it in class, you would always sign it LOL.
what? My
Yeah.
mind is blown. I did not know
Yeah.
that. So I'm sure everyone at home's like, of course, Kai.
Shout
But
out 80s.
all right. Well, there we go. Di is bringing some context to this. All right. So this is kind of our first serious slide.
Class is going
Okay.
on.
All right. Di is gonna read this for us. And this is from a listener named TR. I'm gonna just for privacy put TR on there. And I didn't bring too much context, but TR was a convert to the Mormon Church, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. He left the church while in Bible school, which is kind of an interesting idea.
Sure.
The missionaries he said that it answered a lot of questions for him. I'm gonna say that they planted seeds of doubt that they already had the answers for. Okay, if you were a missionary and you know the missionary discussions, that's what I believe that they do. They create a problem so that they can solve it with their theology. That's not what this is about. This is about a faith versus works discussion. And so I wanted to have Di read just starting from from the background. Go ahead, Di.
Sure. And thank you to this listener for putting in this question. Question is, I've always believed faith is what saved us. Though I always did the Mormon things, quote unquote, that were asked of me to do, I believe that faith alone saves us. But as I began to deconstruct, I saw that those things as, quote, fluff, actually pulling me away from my relationship with Christ. I felt like I was getting the seasonings without getting the meal. But as I was taught, the Bible says faith without works is dead. So this listener's question is it faith alone, or is faith dead without works too?
All right. And I think that this is a really I don't want to downplay the importance of this discussion, because I think that there can be some stark theological differences from Christianity and Mormonism on this. But I also think that both sides, in a way, say similar things. I just listened to a podcast and it was pretty much like, what is your catalyst for your works? Is it that you fully trust Jesus, right? And then that is your catalyst? Or is it that you have to do all of these works in order to have a relationship with Jesus? I don't know if that makes sense, Di.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
So what are kind of your thoughts on this? Is it faith alone, or is it our works that save us? Is it a blend? Is it we just have to reach just a little bit above a decent standard? What is it?
Well, I think this becomes, for a lot of people, a really circular conversation. And that's where it's like the chicken and the egg, which one comes first? And so they get really confused on which one is the origin. And I would say quite firmly, faith is the origin. We are saved by faith in Jesus Christ as our Lord and Savior. That is where salvation comes from. But the verse that trips people up is that faith without works is dead. So I would say it at its most simple. Salvation is by faith in Christ, and works are a product of that faith. So if you don't have genuine faith, that will be evidenced by no works will come from it. Now, that can sound legalistic if you understand my meaning of that word. It can sound very religious or very, we're all going to sit around with clipboards and have some check marks when people have good works. But that's exactly the opposite. I think the works just come from as a natural byproduct. So if we put this in maybe a more understandable context, no marriage is perfect, but if you truly love your spouse, you're going to want to act in love toward them. And those works come from the commitment and the relationship that you have. And when that begins to crumble, if it does, I think some of the first signs are the actions change, and actions could include words or deeds, or, if someone starts speaking really hatefully to the person they're married to, there's probably a heart change that has already happened there. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's, I think it's important to say, what is the origins of just the works that you do in your life? Are they because you are fearful? Is it because you're
Right.
afraid
Okay,
of,
motive. Yep.
yeah, like what, yeah, what's your motive? Like, I used the word catalyst a little bit earlier, but yeah, what is your motive for wanting to live a good life? Like, I don't want to spoil maybe an episode I want to do later, but I do want to talk about this idea of, is your relationship with God conditional or unconditional? And I think it's really important in the Mormon Church, your relationship with God is pretty darn conditional. And you could go over the sacrament prayers, you could go over the temple endowment, lots of, pretty much every covenant that you make in the Mormon Church is condition. Your relationship with God becomes very conditional
Mhm.
on your works. And I think that it's an important discussion to have, that once you do all of the things the church wants you to do, then you have a relationship with God. Otherwise, the Spirit is completely withdrawn from you, right? And I I don't want to get too far into the churchiness of it, but I do think that there isn't just this, okay, you're living the church's standard, right? For those of you listening to this as a podcast, and then, oh, you just rose just gently above this standard, therefore God is with you and you're okay. I would
Right.
say this is a temple recommend, and then this is where you're at, and hey, things are pretty good for you in your life. I don't think that that's really how this works. It is, I believe in Jesus. I'm going to let that faith like dictate my choices and not guilt and condemn me into feeling like I can't be in relationship with God.
Yeah.
Right? That anyways, that's my kind of brief take. I've actually written out a whole podcast about this, about every covenant, and really how the covenants that are made in the Mormon Church and the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints actually push us away from God and make us feel like there is a level that we have to achieve before God will really reach out to us with his Spirit. And I guess I just take a huge issue with that. I think that the most like vile of sinners can say, Jesus, I trust you, I believe in you, and then like the work begins for them. And
Yeah.
that's the catalyst, is just like, hey, I got a lot of screwed up stuff. I got a lot of weird ideas. But Jesus still says, hey, I want relationship with you, not fix those weird ideas.
Yeah.
Even Di, you may not know this, but I'm actually, yeah, this is kind of a weird idea, but if you want to baptize somebody into the Mormon Church, like a convert or even a child, actually, they meet with the bishop, and before they're able to be in this ordinance that provides, salvation for them, saving, I'm going to put in quotes, saving ordinances, you have to meet with a bishop and you have to say, hey, are you living all of these standards? So are you or are you willing to do that after baptism? Right. So that may be paying tithing. Oh my gosh, I wish I had all these offhand, but I'm kind of spitballing here. But paying tithing, doing callings, anyways, don't crucify me in the comment section. But you're asked a series of questions, and those questions dictate if you're going to have a relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And I just think that's kind of a problem. And I definitely feel like it's self-serving for a church to require that level of obedience. I don't know, Di, what are your thoughts on that?
I mean, I think if we go back to our listener's question, is it faith alone or is faith dead without works? I mean, that scripture I just quoted, that faith without works is dead, seems to say faith should be reflected in how we live. But I love that you said it's the catalyst for. So that speaks to motive, and it also speaks to a beginning. There is a beginning. Like we come to faith in Jesus Christ for salvation that we cannot earn on our own, and we certainly don't deserve. And that's the beginning. That's the origin of us now beginning to reflect the grace that we've received, the love that we've received, the forgiveness we've received, and we begin to walk it out. If there's never a reflection of those things or a life change or a walk it out, you got to go back to the origin and say, well, did the origin impact this? Was there an actual origin? Does that help?
Yeah, and I think your marriage example is actually very insightful, right? Because somebody can say, I love my spouse and be an awful spouse, right? They could cheat on their spouse and beat their kids and all these crazy things, right? And you would say, like, that's not really a loving person.
Mhm.
And so I think, wow, Di, we're gonna go here. In the famous words of DMX, the rapper, talk is cheap, right? It is. Like, anyone can say anything, right? And really, your actions show this deep inner commitment that you have to something.
And yet, it's not about the works. The works don't save you. And that's just an important, you have to separate the two. For our way to relationship with Jesus is not paved by our works. So I don't know. This is the dumbest thing. It just popped in my head. But like, as we're driving down this road of faith, the road is not paved by works. It was paved by Jesus. But what's coming out of the back of the car is good stuff, not exhaust, not pollution. It's good stuff that's coming out. Is that? I don't know
Yeah.
if that works.
Well,
I'm trying to separate the two things. They go together, but one is the result of another.
Yeah, definitely. And I like the catalyst idea, right? Like, I like that Jesus is really that catalyst. Okay. Well, I threw DMX in here, so this isn't that religious-y.
I can't compete. I'll look for a spot to throw in Eminem. He's my
There
choice.
we go. Talk is cheap, person. I don't know. I'm not going to finish that one off. All right. So we're going to go to this next one. And this is Di, I'm going to set this one up. All of us have in our lives that one friend who is, maybe some of you don't, and maybe you need this friend, who will just put you on blast all the time. Like, I have a friend who will just be like, yeah, Kai, it's because you're just not that tough. Like, Kai, you need to suck it up. He's that friend. Okay. And sometimes he's right. Sometimes he's right and really annoying. So he's listening to my podcast and, giving some pretty harsh criticism. You guys get this friend. He's a good friend, but he will not tell you what you want to hear ever. So anyways, this is what he texts me while listening to this podcast. He said, oh my gosh. He said, and the question I have, was the mission a waste of time? Do you feel like all that time, he's referring to all my time in the Mormon Church, was wasted? And then he goes on in typical friend fashion, or I actually think he's probably my greatest critic. He says, you need to suck it up like you did in wrestling to become a state champion. It's a way better story that you sucked. Thank you for that. And then decided to be good. Better than the guys who were always good. It's not wasted time. And I love when people send me comments and it totally stops me in my tracks in kind of this self-pity that I think a lot of people who find themselves when they leave the Mormon Church, they feel bad about all of it. And I'm sure it's the same with people in other bad and broken relationships. They feel bad about all of it and they kind of sit in this. And I appreciate my friend calling me out and sending me this text. I called him later and he said, Kai, all of these things, like, look at what you're doing now. Like, all of these things are going to work together in a really positive way. And I really wanted to disagree with him. And I really wanted to say, no, you're wrong. But I do feel that all of these things are kind of working together in a positive way where hopefully I can try to have a little bit of hope and spread a little bit of something positive out of this experience. Di, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I want to ask you, because you haven't really answered. I mean, in the time we've spent talking together, are you able to look back and see positive things that are a result now, or do you feel like the time was wasted?
I really love efficiency in my life. I really love things
I can appreciate
like
that. So do I.
being efficient. Like, I'll watch someone right now. I'm doing all the electrical in my house, and I'll watch somebody who does it day in and day out, and they just smoke me. And I think, I really suck at this. You know, like this person is so much better. And so, but maybe that's a human condition. We all probably don't like futility. We don't like doing something and just having it just kind of go to nothing and not be wasteful. And I think that is something that a lot of ex-Mormons feel, is a lot of futility in this. I get, the sunk cost reality, like what we talked about in a previous episode, where they look at this. I think our next slide actually kind of gave me a little bit of hope and might answer this question a little bit. But this is what I want to say to people. I think if you do things with the right intentions, really nothing is a lost cause. Like, if you sincerely feel that, hey, I'm doing this with the right intentions, I could stand in front of God and say, for those of you who believe, if you don't, I could stand in front of someone I love and respect and say, while I was on my mission, while I was serving in callings, whether I was giving tithing to the Mormon Church, I can stand in front of God or a respected person I know and say, I did this with the best intentions. I did this well-meaning, not trying to cause pain, and really acting on conviction.
Yeah.
And for me, that's almost good enough. We're getting close. We're getting close to kind of fully healing from this, but it's like almost good enough for me. And is it wasted time? No, but I feel that it is not an efficient use of maybe my time. And is it what God would have me do? I don't know. Who knows?
Probably.
I mean, on that one.
I kind of feel like it's a life principle that we learn by making mistakes. And maybe that's too harsh of a way to say it, but I mean, I do feel like you watching an electrician put together electrician work in your house and be way faster. You're learning as you go. So they had to learn to get to that point. So you're learning to get to that point too. I think it's a biblical principle. While it's not a verse that I can quote, I think it's a biblical principle that nothing is wasted. There's just nothing wasted. While it feels like a waste of time to us, and I am all about efficiency. It makes me insane when things are not done efficiently. But I can appreciate that nothing is wasted because of what we learn from trying things different ways or doing things even wrong.
Yeah. And I think that we can see, I hope I can look back 5, 10, 20 years from now and say, yeah, it all makes sense. It might not. I might not have that perspective or that,
We're boat
who
owners.
knows?
We're new boat owners in the past couple of years. And, there's like, I don't know, probably 10, maybe less than 10 major mistakes you can make as a boat owner that people will tell you, don't make this mistake, this mistake, this mistake. And they are the mistakes that almost every boat owner makes in order to learn to never make that mistake again. So yesterday we were trying to back the boat into our backyard, and it's a clearance of just a couple inches on either side. So it is
Ouch.
a tight backup. So we got to a point where we had got it through the tightest part, but we were, the trailer hitch was a little turned crooked. And so it was going to be hard to get it the full way into the backyard. So we decided we were going to unhook the boat and push it to straighten it out and then rehook the Jeep. And we're on a hill. So we're smart. We put the little wheel stops underneath the wheels because we don't want it to roll away. We both have good shoes on because first we were both wearing flip-flops. And then we call our grown son to come out. So we've got 3 bodies in front of the thing. And when we put the wheel down that props up the trailer right where you unhook the hitch, it didn't lock into place. So as soon as we unhooked it, the whole front of the boat fell down. But it was so close to the railing to our house that the railing kept it from falling onto the ground and the boat sliding off onto us, which then ruined the railing to our house. But we learned you have to make sure that little stupid lock clicked into place. And it doesn't, people have told us that sometimes you don't learn until you do it, and then you'll never make that mistake again. So there's a whole wealth of things we learn in life by learning as we go.
Yeah. And I guess I don't want people to be hard on themselves. And I always believe that sometimes the best advice you can give yourself is something you give to someone else. Right.
Right.
So that's for me included. I have to say, hey, life is just a journey. I believe that at this point that God is in control, and I'm just going to go with that. This next slide relates to that idea. And I think I don't know how to introduce this slide, but randomly I will get people who will reach out to me. I'm a very relational person. If you guys haven't noticed, I'm a big friends guy. If my wife is a big possessions person, I don't want any possessions. I just want friends, and I never get rid of a friend. I'm always kind of a friend person. And I had someone reach out to me from my mission. This would have been like 2 weeks ago. And I want to kind of end this podcast on a really positive note and just talk about like what my feelings are from this guy who reached out to me. So, and I also put some art in here. Di, you probably don't know this about me, but I actually really like the arts.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And I love musicals. Isn't that funny? Love them. Yeah.
Awesome.
Which is not really, I guess I cry a lot. So, hey, maybe. Just kidding. So this is the letter that I received through Messenger. And it says this: "Hey Kai, we haven't met." So this is someone who's reaching back out to me from my mission. He married a gal that we ended up kind of having all of his kids baptized into the church, into the Mormon Church. He says, "Hey Kai, we haven't met. I married Jane," and I've changed all the names. "I gained 3 sons, Tom, Jack, and John. These kids became my own." We may have to take breaks because I'm too emotional of a person. "You have quite an impact on our family, and I want to say thank you. You taught our boys and were a great influence. Having his uncle," which I substitute the name, "baptize Jack. You helped many through this. I understand you left the church, but wanted to say that you had an impact here. Your work here helped us tremendously. Thanks again. I am grateful to you. Jack spoke of you when he talked about the missionaries. He has you on a pedestal. Jack passed away a year ago. Your name was spoken from his lips the week before he passed. God bless you.
Hmm.
Anyways, I'm an emotional person, so this stuff is like really difficult and hard for me because in one sense, I pushed myself really hard and was super dedicated as a Mormon missionary and just wanted to put that whole message out there. And it's interesting to me that I had really any impact. I don't know, Di. These things are kind of hard for me because they make things very muddy for me to, have this where I feel like on my best, the best version of me as a missionary was just trying to help people. And now that I've left the church, it kind of has me torn in different ways.
Mm.
I don't know. What do you think?
Oh boy. I don't even know that I can speak. I can feel the tearing inside of you of, if I understand this correctly, this is a family still in the Mormon Church. Is that
Yeah.
correct? Okay. So
Yep.
they're saying, even though you've left, you had a huge impact on us in the church, and we remain in the church. So thank you that you've directed us here.
Yeah. Yeah. And I guess where I thought about this for some hope is I feel that having a positive impact on people, you can never really go wrong in that scenario. Like
Mm.
you can never go wrong in trying to have a positive impact in whatever that is. Like you think about for an angry ex-Mormon, maybe this won't work, but maybe it will. You think about like what Jesus said to people. He said the first two great commandments are to love your fellow man and to love God, right? They were trying to kind of trip him up. But the Sadducees and Pharisees at that point were trying to trip him up, and he said, "Hey, you just have to love people and you have to love God." I feel that on my mission, I was doing both of those things. I was loving people, trying my best to, engage with them and do that. And I think even now I say, okay, like I'm glad I was able to have a positive impact on these people. I think we all know people who walk through life and say, "Oh, I'm never going to do that because this negative, terrible consequence can come out of it." And they are just kind of always stuck in this negative death spiral of thought. And I actually believe that both of these comments go together. The
Mm.
comment from my friend who is a hardcore critic of me, um, who I still love, and this comment of, well, is it good for me to still have this positive impact on people, even in a journey that I kind of wish, or I'm wrestling with the idea of should I have gone or should I have not gone? Is it still okay for me to think I actually look at that favorably? I look at my mission favorably, and is that still being true to uh, my faith system? Was it still good for other people? I don't know. Di, what do you think on this? Very like, I don't think my time was wasted with this family. I mean, I seem to have an impact, and I was doing everything out of love. I don't know. It kind of weighs the scales a little bit more. Like maybe it was a good use of time. I don't know.
Well, you certainly, in making an impact, in loving other people, in serving other people, you've built a bridge, a relationship that gives you an opportunity going forward. So there's still opportunity there for conversation and for you to share things you've learned along the way, and maybe even what you believe now. And maybe that's just an opportunity. I think the story feels maybe a little undone or more towards sad if that's the end of the story. They just stay in the Mormon Church and continue to believe the things that you've realized were deceptive. So I think there's that category. But on the other hand, the other thing that I think of is when I was a young minister, I was a youth pastor for a lot of years. In fact, I was a youth pastor, Brandon was a youth pastor, and then we got married and then we became youth pastors together. So we spent a lot of time with teenagers. And I can think of this one young man who was steeped in drugs. And he came to our church. He gave his life to Jesus. He walked away from drugs. He had warrants out for his arrest. He was in a world of mess. And he managed to walk that out for about 2 years. And then we could see him sliding back toward that world of drugs. And so I tried everything I could to stop the slide. I would drive by his house and say, hey, I'll bring you over to our house. You can have dinner with us, just to keep him out of that world. And my motive 100% was love. I could stand before the Lord right now and say, I love that young man fiercely. And he's one of many. I just thought of his story. But I tried everything I could to almost live his life for him and prevent him from making bad choices. And ultimately, he did go back to the drug world and then hated me for how hard I tried to keep him from it, because he felt like all he'd done is disappoint me. And so I say that story to say my motive was love. But I think what I learned since then is I can love people, but they have to walk out their choices. And I'll be here if they want to come back for advice or encouragement or to help them. But I can't make their choices for them. So I think when I think about you and the impact that you've had on people, the love is what people remember. And that relationship remains an open relationship that they could come back to and ask more questions if they're curious or they start feeling a desire to know more.
Yeah, and I think even if that isn't an end result, like even if this experience just operates in a like nothing else comes out of it, there's not like I still feel good about it. I mean, I still feel like, hey, if I had an impact on your family and you felt like, hey, this brought you together as a family and people were, united and all those things, like I still feel good about it. And I want people who are listening to this to kind of just have those same thoughts. Like I think about the person teaching a Sunday school class where we're, celebrating Joseph Smith or celebrating like Mormon theology or all of these things. And they might like think about that and just kind of get like a real negative feeling or kind of a pit like I kind of do when I think about that. And I want those people to like, I honestly hope and pray that they just say, you know what? I was doing the best I could with the information I had. Yeah. I was, and I'm ready to like move forward in a really positive way. I put this picture up because I really love this picture. So this is by Joseph Court, and it's called A Scene of Deluge. And I've this picture kind of sums up my whole time in the Mormon Church into one. I would assume this is an oil painting. Di, you probably have seen this. Maybe you haven't. Yeah. But here you have a man, which I would insert myself as that, kind of reaching at the past, right? And I think a lot of times that's what ex-Mormons will do. They kind of reach at the past. So it shows as an older man, I'm assuming that's his dad, reaching at the past. That can be regret. That can be, choices that you've made, missions that you've served, and tithing that you've given. Okay. Reaching at the past. When right now in the present, right? It shows his wife and his baby, that are kind of being ignored. And that can be our present circumstances, whether that is, feeling positive and mentally in a really healthy place. That can be our actual family, and maybe some depression and anxiety that we might be feeling right now that's kind of separating us from them or loved ones around us. Or as I view it, a relationship with God that maybe we've put on the back burner because we've said, I've been hurt by that. And because we're hurt by that, we're reaching for the past, right? That's what's making us ignore that. And so I hope and pray that everyone really in these circumstances will just find a really positive way to just like move on and just feel like good. And that, listen, I would love if that's a relationship with Jesus, would love that. But even if that's just hey, I'm ridding myself of some of the depression and the nihilism and the anger that I have towards the Mormon Church, just like that painting shows. I think that would be a really positive step for people. And it's something that if you listen to this podcast, that I am not perfect on. I am not the perfect example of this. But I think it's just really important for people to really, like, if it is your past, let that be your past, and do something positive. And even looking back on that past, try to look at it in a positive light. Not trying to reach for something.
Well said. Well said.
All right. Well,
I have nothing to add to that. Well done.
All right. Well, if you like our content, like, share, subscribe.
Send us more questions.
Send us more questions. I think it's really good to do that in YouTube. That's me personally. That way I can give you a quick response. But yeah, you can send it also to JesusForMormons@gmail.com, or you can drop it into the comments down below this video. Again, until next time.
Yeah, until next time.
All right. We love you guys.